My name is Alistair Knox. I'm a programmer at SOPAC, and I developed the SOPAC Coordinate Interpolator Prompt, or acronym SCIP. So I'm going to give a brief overview of what SCIP is and how to use it. SCIP is a web tool that allows you to take a set of coordinates recorded at one point in time and translate them forward or backward through time, taking into account all of the seismic motion that's occurred in that period. So how it works, it uses something called a dynamic datum, which is a geodetic datum that updates every single week with data from our network of GPS stations, plus an underlying fault model, which gives us even greater resolution. So the reference epoch we use is 2010. That's when the network of GPS stations had relatively good coverage. And from that time, we calculate the displacement that is accumulating week after week. And then with this, we can create a picture of what the motion looks like across California and the Western United States. So we also have data going back to the year 2000, but since coverage isn't quite as good in the early years, we use 2010 as the reference. So using this collection of grids every week, we can choose any arbitrary times along our series and then calculate the difference in between them. So this is how you get any calculation from SCIP. Now let's look at how you would actually use SCIP to get a correction. For a single point, you can specify your input and output datum using the menus. You have WGS84, ITRF 2014 for XYZ coordinates, NAD83 2011, and NSRS 2007. For output datum, you have the same set of options. Then date format can be decimal year, calendar date, or day of year. And Latin long format can be in decimal or degrees, minutes, seconds. Height is feet or meters. So you can input a point by typing it in, or you can simply click on the map and drag the marker to adjust the location. Also on the map, you're able to view the dynamic datum at any week. So this will show the accumulated east motion for the epoch of 2022-2496. So to see any other epoch, you can use the timeline to go back. And as we approach 2010, the reference, you'll see that the displacements go down to 0. And then before 2010, the displacements will accumulate in the other direction. So you're able to view how the dynamic datum looks for the east, north, and up at any specific epoch. You can also view the uncertainties, as well as the transient and weekly transients. So when you're ready to get your correction, you can click Get Coordinates. Height is not necessary unless you want to go from one input datum to a different one, or if you want to get a correction in the vertical direction. Then once it finishes, you can look at your output. So you have your input and output that you entered reproduced. Closest input and output date will be the closest grid date that we have data for. So this is going to be within 1 week of the dates that you specified. Your input coordinates, as well as the output coordinates, and the displacement given in east, north, and up. So these are the values that are directly taken from the grids, which we then use in combination with the input coordinates to produce the output coordinates. One more powerful way to use SCIP is inputting a list of points. You just use a header to specify the same options that we did with the drop-down menus. So input, output, datum, date format, lat long. Then each point is going to be on a new line with a name or an ID at the beginning. So we can paste in example 1 to see what that looks like. And it's going to give each point on its own line with all of the same information. The map also shows what the resulting location is for each of your points, just to give a little visual. Another thing you can do with the same interface is get inside time series for a point. So using the map, you can check what the INSAR data coverage is like. And you can see that it's not quite as large as for the displacement grids, but any point within this area should have data for at least one track and sometimes multiple tracks. So I've prepared an example of a point that has data for 2 tracks. You hit get INSAR time series. It takes a while to run, so I've got the result ready. So what you get is a graph for each track. You get a list of points that are available for each track and the look angle. So this is what it looks like for each track. You'll see the 2 graphs are very different. Okay, similarly, you can upload a list of points to get INSAR data, and the format is just lat and lun with no header required. And that's a brief overview of SCIP. You can also take a look at the info and references page to see how to use it in Word form, and the references will describe how the dynamic datum works in more detail. Thanks.